Hello, hello.
Test, test. Good.
Wow, sorry. Up here, is it? Or up here?
These should come out. Let's just put it on top of here for now. We'll go whenever you're ready.
Welcome. My name is Jean Helms, and I use she, they pronouns, and I am the admin director at this church. For the chalice lighting today, I'm going to share words from Kenneth Patton. We arrive out of many singular rooms, walking over the branching streets. We come to be assured that family surrounds us, to restore their images on our eyes. We enlarge our voices in common speaking and singing. We try again that solitude found in the midst of those who with us seek their hidden reckonings. Our eyes reclaim the remembered faces. Their voices stir the surrounding air. The warmth of their hands assures us, and the gladness of our spoken names. This is the reason of cities, of homes, of assemblies in the houses of worship. It is good to be with one another.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Bob Fusen. I use he, him, his pronouns. At the start of our time together, we acknowledge the land and the peoples that have called this place home for hundreds of years. The Oto-Missouri, the Omaha, Ponca, Kansa, and Pawnee have lived here at one time. Many others have visited in order to collect salt at the local salt basin. Nisquithe, by which this area continues to be known, is the Omaha word for salt water. We thank them all for their good care of this sacred ground. We also take this opportunity to reject the doctrine of discovery that paved the way for the degradation of native inhabitants and the unlawful appropriation of the land. We recognize that we cannot continue to benefit from these past actions. While we cannot change the past, we are committed to right relationship with our native neighbors. Indigenous peoples of many nations make their home in Lincoln today. We value their contribution to our community's vitality and diversity. These are not idle words. Our commitment is to action. We pledge to show up in support of local and national policies, programs, and measures that demand redress for lands taken, that offer justice for harm committed, and that seek to promote self-determination and equity for all peoples.
So welcome to the Unitarian Church of Lincoln on this Sunday morning. At the beginning of our congregational year together, I'm the Reverend Dr. Oscar Sinclair. Right before we started the service, we have a planning meeting before the service starts at 9:30 every morning. And at 9:45 this morning, I was meeting with the planning team, and I reminded them as we were going out to come in here that the goal of worship is not perfection, but it is to have meaningful experiences together. The reason, of course, that I was having this conversation with them is that this is ingathering. This is when we launch our congregational year together. It's where we have multiple rituals. It's an all-ages service. We've rearranged the chancel. And as I was driving into work, my car broke down. And so I skidded into the parking lot via Uber at about 9:35 with boxes of things that I needed to set up. And so we are, in some ways, doing some of this planning as the worship service continues. So my reminder to you, as well as the people running worship, is that the goal of worship is not perfection. It is to have meaningful experiences together. So with that, back to the actual script. We set aside one Sunday every year, usually in late August or early September, to mark the end of summer and the beginning of our formal congregational year. So these patterns are like seasons or the academic calendar, and they give shape to our time together. They make it so it's not just an undifferentiated set of Sundays over a course of 12 months. And every year we have particular things that we want to do together as a community. And each year there are particular challenges that we take up. And every Sunday for the last 6 or 7 years, I repeat the vision statement of this congregation, that we are a loving community uniting reason with spiritual exploration to transform ourselves and the world. Now that transformation that we talk about means implicitly that we are never still, that every time we gather, we change, we evolve, we move. It means, I hope, that we grow as a community over time. Now, in an older version of our our mission statement. It says that in this place, we cultivate growth and celebrate the challenges that growth brings. So growth, change, transformation, these things are constants in what it means to be part of the Unitarian Church of Lincoln. And change work is hard and complicated work, because every time we change something, we let go of something that was treasured. Lovett Weems once told me that all church leadership work is change work, fundamentally. And all change work, fundamentally, is grief work. Because every time you change something, especially in a church, you are changing something that is beloved by at least one person. So Lovett would say that your job as a leader in a church is to figure out the rate of disappointment that your congregation can handle and to modulate the change that you're going through to meet that. Because the reality is everything is always changing. There is no way that a congregation stays the same for a generation because the people in it change. And so the question is not whether or not we change. The question is how we change and with what intention we do that. So it is with full knowledge that change is grief, and that we are a congregation that embraces the growth that change brings, that we start this morning by saying, we're going to do water communion a little differently this year. Water communion is an old Unitarian tradition. Old for us, meaning about 40 years. But for the last 30 or 40 years, many Unitarian Universalist congregations have started the year with this same ritual that was originally developed in the early 1980s by the Women in Religious movement in a conference they held in East Lansing, Michigan. Recognizing that we each come with our own lives to this place, we gather at the start of the year, each bringing water. Or we have jugs of water, if you have not brought water. Now, the way that we do this has varied over the years, but usually it's some form of water from a place or journey that's important to you. This is water from my home. Then we pour it into a central bowl, marking the journey from our many singular rooms, as Ken Patton says, and marking the blending that's part of our community. Everybody's water that they brought becomes inseparable in that common vessel. And that's often where the ritual ends. But this year we're going to do it earlier in the service than usual, and here's the change at the end. We're going to invite you to come take some of the water that we've gathered together in one of these little vials to take with you. Because just as you bring yourself to this community, just as this community exists as a combination of everybody in it, you also take this community with you every time you go. The Unitarian Church of Lincoln is not just something that exists for an hour on Sunday morning, it's a thing that exists for the whole week. So more on that later. For now, we'll start the service with singing. We're going to sing Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. Now, before we do that, a quick reminder, two quick reminders. First, this is an all-ages service, so we welcome all here, whatever your age is. We know that we have times of silence in worship, but even when it's just adults, they're never fully silent. They're full of sounds of life, and we breathe together in this space. And we know that the sounds of children playing are the sounds of a healthy church. So this is an all-ages service, and we embrace that as a congregation. We also know that the sound of a healthy church is the sound of singing. Now, as a reminder at the start of a congregational year, congregational singing is not the same as singing out in the world. I said the sound of a healthy church is the sound of a congregation singing. I did not say the sound of a congregation singing well. John Wesley once wrote, in a set of directions for singing in church, updated a little bit for 2023, direction number 4, sing lustily. and with good courage. Beware of singing as if you were half dead or half asleep, but lift up your voice with strength. Be no more afraid of your voice now, nor more ashamed of it being heard, than when you sang along to Taylor Swift in the car on your drive here. He used a different example. Put a different way, don't worry if you can sing well or not. I cannot. But this is a church, not a show choir. So sing with good courage. And let us begin with Enter, Rejoice, and Come In, which the number is above me on the screen. 361.
Good morning. I'm Wendy Hesterman. I'm the admin associate here at the church, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. And I'm in charge of bringing the community together. So, at this time, you are invited to come forward with any water you have brought for our common vessel. This is mine. Just as we each bring our own voice to this room when we sing together, we each bring our homes, our hopes, and ourselves to the work of this church. The water we stir together is made up of the contributions of each of us. If you did not bring water, please pour some from the pitchers into the common bowl. As our guest musician, Julia Williams, plays this next piece, please come forward and pour your water together here. I will start.
We also know that there are about 25 of you watching on the live stream. And so for all of those at home who are bringing their homes to this space, we add more. All right, now I think it's time for the story.
If anyone would like to come forward for the story, you're welcome to do so now. My daughter just made me this lovely crown. There's some beads and pipe cleaners over there. Anyone's welcome to go make a necklace or crown for themselves as well. Our story is called We Got Here Together by Kim Stafford. You get cozy, and I'll start. Once in the deepest ocean, there was a little fish. That fish opened its mouth and let a bubble go. At the same moment, a cloud high over the ocean let a raindrop go. Way down in the deep, that bubble started its journey to the surface. And high in the sky, that raindrop started down. Would you be afraid? I might be afraid. But nothing can hurt a raindrop. Nothing can hurt a bubble. They belong where they are going. For a long time, that bubble drifted up through the water without a thought, bumping a seal belly, bouncing off a seaweed leaf, rolling through the blue, floating toward that big ceiling of light. And the raindrop was spinning dizzy down, sliding along the shoulder of the wind, tumbling toward that silver field of water. They took so long, falling down and soaring up, that they grew. The bubbles swelled and filled with light. The raindrop gathered ready and round. And somehow, they were aimed for the exact moment in time, and they got there together. Then they were. What were they? The bubble opened and was the whole sky. The raindrop opened and was the whole ocean. And there they were, sky and ocean, turning right where they belonged. And you and I, we got here together too, didn't we? We got here safe, in the silver light, right where we belong. And that is the end of our story.
Thank you, Julia Williams, for that beautiful rendition of Deep River. Good morning. I am Elle Stratman, and I am a member of the Board of Trustees. This community is not just what happens on Sunday morning. The Unitarian Church of Lincoln exists in the events that we gather for every week, and in the joys and sorrows that we bring to our gatherings. This week we have a couple of announcements. First, join us this afternoon for a pop-up concert with Jim Scott. This is a rare opportunity to hear one of the singer-songwriters featured in our hymnals. Jim will be joined by Dr. Bob Fusen on the sax. The concert will begin at 3 p.m. here in the sanctuary. Our second announcement is that you should save the date of Sunday, September 10th, for a potluck competition to kick off this year's annual giving campaign. There will be multiple opportunities to win prizes. If you'd like to receive these announcements more frequently, sign up to receive the Friday e-blast and pay attention to your monthly newsletter for details of events like these. Our community also sets aside time to tend to each other in times of joy and in times of sadness. We share with one another our joys, our sorrows, the events that mark the steps on our journey. The threads of sorrow and those of joy are intertwined in the fabric of our lives. Present for all, remembered by all. We share those threads, and then they are woven together with those of others in our community. Our joys are shared and magnified, and we are comforted in our sorrows. I invite you to type into the chat if you are on our YouTube channel watching, or speak into this shared space, your name or the name of another you wish to be remembered in sorrow.
Memory of Katie.
Memory of Katie. Pam Stryker? Sam Stryker. Thank you.
The victims of the racist murders.
Victims of racist murders. Tom. And we have about a 20-second delay on the live chat, so I'm just checking here. We have a comment in the chat, strength for Judy and Ron. Charlie. Sorrow for Brian, mourning his friend. David. I invite you to type into the chat or speak into this shared space your name or the name of another you wish to be remembered in joy.
Lane and Kayla, my two sons and grandsons, it's been a glorious week with them last week.
Tim has spent a glorious week with his family. I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Hudson turned 8 yesterday. Happy birthday, Hudson. Julia started at UNL. And I'll add that my Nels has started at SCC. Joy for volunteer training. Millie. Getting to know great-grandchildren. And we do have a couple more sorrows in the chat. We have Keith and Marguerite. Jeremy mourning the loss of his mom. And I don't know if this is a joy or a sorrow, but Joseph.
Be able to sing later on this afternoon at choir rehearsal.
Joy for choir rehearsal this afternoon. Joy for the cooler temperatures, yes. Clarification on Joseph, it is a joy. We know too that there are some joys, some sorrows, too close to the heart, but still deeply felt. Let us hold a moment of silence for everything unspoken. Thank you for your presence.
Well, somewhere I left my script. Wing it. But we will invite the board members that I asked to be a part of this morning to come forward and take a mic. And I might share a script with one of you. Sure.
The Unitarian Church of Lincoln is more than just a place where volunteers gather in community.
It is also a place where people work. Congregational employees, a staff team to manage the affairs of the congregation, educate and care for our children, fill our gatherings with music, and make sure we are able to do the big things we say we are about.
So working with the staff team here at UCL is one of the best parts of my job, and it's work that is often, but not always, behind the scenes. This spring, while I was away, I was very conscious of how much it takes to run this place and how much that falls on our lay staff members.
So to Liz, Wendy, Julie, Bill, Bob, Chelsea, Jean, and all our child care providers from the last year, thank you. Thank you for the care you put in this community.
Thank you for the professionalism you bring to your role.
Thank you for the late nights, trying to get something done right before the day it goes live.
Thank you for the early mornings, making sure the lights are on and the doors are unlocked before anyone else gets here.
Thank you for the joyful greetings on Sunday mornings, welcoming us to this place that feels like a home to us.
Thank you for the joyful greetings on Sunday morning, welcoming us to this place that feels like home to us.
Thank you for the challenges that you sometimes present us, asking us to do more, to go deeper, to step out, help out, and show up for this community.
So as we go into this year together, we know that none of us are perfect, that all of us, volunteers, staff, minister, are going to probably have moments that we regret in the next 12 months. But there will also be moments for us to celebrate together, this thing that we co-create every time that we gather. So for all the times we have and will make mistakes, forgive us. For all the joys and the celebrations we will mark together, thank you. We will now continue with the offering. So one of the very practical ways that we support our staff is through our budget. You're going to hear a lot more about that in the next year and a half. But somebody said in a board meeting this week that the Unitarian Church of Lincoln does not, despite how it looks, run on love. Instead, it runs on the things that we all bring to this place, whether it's time, talent, or treasure. And in recognition of all of the things that we bring to this place, we set aside time every Sunday morning to take up a collection for the support of this congregation. So as we take up this collection, we're going to sing our next hymn. It's hymn number 1 in the gray hymnal, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door. And as we sing it together, the collection will be gratefully received. And remember, perfection's not the goal. So if you're holding a hymnal and you're singing a hymn that you don't quite recognize and the offering plate comes by you, put the hymnal down for a second, pass the offering plate, pick it up, and hear where the rest of the congregation is. We all practice carrying each other and this community in many, many ways. Would you please rise in body or in spirit? Perfection is not the goal, singing together is. The other day I came into work on a weekday morning, on a Tuesday morning. I haven't worn one of these in half a year. The other day I walked into work on a Tuesday morning. And usually I walk in and I come in that entry hallway and I turn left and check my mail and say hi to Jean and Wendy and then go into my office and attempt to write something on Tuesday. But this particular day I walked in and a member of our congregation was in the entryway, sitting working on a project. And we said hi and she told me that it wasn't a project for the church, but it was something that she was doing for her family. I had hard and complicated emotional work, but necessary. And when we were talking later, she told me, and I wrote down, and I asked her if I could say this to the congregation, I didn't realize until recently that the church could be a harbor for me any day of the week, not just for a church meeting or Sunday service. The realization for her was that she could come on a Tuesday morning when she needed a place that felt like home, that felt like safety, that felt like comfort. And she could have those things here, even if what she was working on wasn't related directly to the work of this church. It's easy enough to think of the Unitarian Church of Lincoln as a thing that only exists while we're here. A sort of object permanence of the church. We assume that everybody else's experience is more or less our own. It exists as this community that we build together for an hour every Sunday morning, and maybe an hour for a bylaws meeting after church on Sunday, or a program council meeting on Thursday night. But other than that, the church is just a building. It's just a thing that we drive by. Part of the landscape of Lincoln, Nebraska. And we assume that's true for everybody else that's part of the community. This is part of the occupational hazard of being a minister. You spend 40 or 50 hours a week in a building, and then are surprised when your members haven't spent as much time memorizing Section 7.4 of the congregation's bylaws that you have. It's a problem because, of course, the experiences of a church are as varied as we are. This is one of the reasons that we start every year with this water communion ritual. Joining the pouring water into a shared vessel, joining all of our disparate stories into a single whole. Because the church does not exist as an abstract concept. It exists as the experiences of the people here. A collection of people and our memories and our hopes for the community. In the Unitarian tradition, the church doesn't really exist outside of that, right? There's no denomination that owns this building. There's no bishop that decides what kind of Unitarian church should exist in Lincoln, Nebraska. There is just this community and what we build. A group of people who share a dream, a common dream, of a liberal religious institution in this city, and then make that dream a reality through their efforts. Make the abstract concrete by what we do here when we're together. The church is not an abstract concept, it's all of us. But then, by some strange alchemy that I don't know that I will ever fully understand, the church becomes more than simply the sum of its parts. It does exist as a sort of dream made manifest sitting right here on A Street, right next to Pius High School. 365 days a year. When I was in England, I asked the congregation that I was working with over and over again, what draws you to this place? Why the old meeting house in Seven Oaks? And the most common answer that I got was something like, well, when I walk in here, I feel a sense of peace that I cannot describe, but it's very real. But I'm an atheist. I want to make that clear. This is what I think the congregant that I spoke to on Tuesday had discovered, that even in the middle of the week, this place is a place she can come to feel comfort amid uncertainty, home amid disorientation. Here's maybe the same story, but from a different viewpoint. 20 years ago, I was an undergrad at St. Mary's College of Maryland. And despite its name, St. Mary's is a public institution. It's part of the University of Maryland. It just happens to be in St. Mary's City, which is a very grand name for what is actually an archaeological dig. But it's a public university. There is no campus chapel. But right off campus, just next to Calvert Hall, actually across a graveyard, is an old church. It's an old Episcopal Trinity Chapel, it's called. And in the 4 years that I was there, I never met the priest. I never went on Sunday morning. I'm definitely not Anglican, among other things. And there was a UU fellowship that met at the community center that was about a 10-minute drive up the road. But the door of that church was always open, very literally. Because in 4 years, I would go over there once every week or two and just walk into the sanctuary and sit down for a little while. And to go sit in the comfort of a place that people found holy, wrestling with some deep question of meaning or who I was going to be, or occasionally how I would get someone specific to notice me in a particular way. I was 18 and a future minister, so those stories get a little fuzzy between the two of them. But the point is this, the doors of that place were always open. And they meant at least as much on Tuesday morning to the students that gathered there as they did on Sunday for the big show. That's also my hope for this place, for the thing that we're building here. That's why we're doing water communion in this different way this year. Water communion, the tradition of it is a bit like a deposit, right? We bring water together, literally and symbolically, and mix it to show that the community that we build is made up of all of us inseparably. And some years we've used that water to feed our ficus tree out there, sometimes the plants out in the garden. Sometimes we hold it over to the following year, freezing it so it doesn't get a little gnarly and algae filled over the intervening months. But this year we're sending it with you. Over the last 20 minutes or so, we've been taking the water we've gathered together and putting it into these little vials. These little vials. And each one of these, because this is how water works, is made up of the contributions of everybody in this room. There's at least one molecule in each of these vials from every little bit of water that came. And so as Julia plays the next song, I'm going to invite you to come forward and take one of these containers to take home with you today. And what you do with it is totally up to you. Maybe you'll use it to water your plants. Maybe you'll put it on your kitchen windowsill. Maybe you'll put it on a shelf and then forget it until some moment 4 months from now, when you need a reminder that you are not alone. That this community, in all its contributions, in all its people, is present for you, not just on Sunday morning, but on Tuesday afternoon. Because what's in each of these vials is not just water. That's the strange alchemy of church. It is the collected symbol of the community. A little bit of each of us symbolically in each of these containers. I think that matters because the church isn't an abstract concept. It's all of us and what we build together, what we collect together, what we send with each other. And the church is an abstract concept. Somehow that thing that we build with our presence together once a week for an hour on Sunday morning can be a tremendous source of comfort the other 167 hours a week. So as you come forward and take this symbol of community, remember that no matter how isolating the world feels, you are not alone. Never, not ever. Julia. Oh, if you're on the live stream, we'll have some vials set aside for you if you want to come by during the week. We'll have those to distribute as well. Would anybody like water brought to them that was unable to come forward, or would just like water brought to them? Please make yourself, the AV volunteers are making themselves known. This moment marks the two things: the end of our service on Sunday morning, but also the beginning of a congregational year together. There are a lot of pieces that go into a congregational year. We are going to have a lot to do, a lot to be, a lot of opportunities to show up as our best selves, a lot of reminders to show up as our best selves. But all of that is in service of this moment when we are here together, recognizing that by some strange alchemy, the church is the thing that we build together and the thing that reminds us that we are not alone. Never, not ever. May it always be so, and amen. Our closing hymn is in the Teal Hymnal, number 1064, Blue Boat Home. If you would please rise in body or in spirit. This says something different up here, doesn't it? No? Okay. It's just tiny. Okay, if you need a hymnal brought to you, wave and we will do our best. But otherwise, even if you don't know the words, John Wesley says, sing lustily and with courage. And perfection's not the goal. All right, we'll begin.